On the hardest difficulty in Civilization 6, the Deity AI typically wins at around turn 320, while a good Deity player averages at around turn 240. But this is just for winning one of the game's 5 victory types, which led me to think, is there a possible strategy where you can win all 5 victory types before the AI can win one? This might seem easy, and in fact, it would be simple if I didn't add this one handicap. I am not allowed to conquer any cities until I have won all 4 of the previous victory types. After spending minutes of my hard-earned time in the lab, I believe I've discovered the one timeline where something like this may be possible. And the only civ that checks off all those boxes is Brazil. With drips so fire, scholars from around the globe are fighting over themselves to see it. Rainforests that turn from economic sinkholes into the very economy themselves, and the street carnivals that provide amenities to get boosts to every yield in the game. Dripdro is the hero we needed in this trying time. Despite that, even Dripdro is not enough to accomplish this challenge without a plan. And the backbone of said plan is the only ability in the game that grants every possible yield you would need: Void Singers. 20% of all faith is transferred into gold, science, and culture, leaving just production unboosted. But even with production, faith can help us, as there is one belief that when combined with Dripdro's ability, makes Brazil's economy even stronger than Germany's. And so, our first technology will be astrology, since we need to get that religious belief before anyone else. And to get a religion, we first need an accompanying pantheon, which Leventa helps us out with. But they're going to be more important when we get to the cultural portion of this challenge later. For now, their faith is enough to give us an early pantheon where we take Sacred Path to obtain even more faith from holy sites near rainforests. The optimal plan for Brazil in our faith-focused playstyle, but 20% of this measly number is nowhere near enough to put us over the top, and so we need to focus on obtaining as much faith as possible, which requires as many cities as possible. While I explore the map for potential city spots, we will need a monumentality golden age to quickly settle those cities. As I'm exploring, I meet Canada in the east and realize that I can't wait until monumentality, or else my path to expansion will be cut off. So I settle Brasilia, and their already +8 holy site, giving us both more faith and era score to aid in our golden age endeavors. To my south, Russia locks off expansion in that direction, so I have to simultaneously work on settling 2 fronts before the others can do the same. With the ocean to my north, that only leaves the west, which I was pleased to find contained no other civilizations. And thus I had it on lock, allowing me to focus on the more malleable fronts. And after I plan out every city that I would want to settle, I realized that would take so much population and production that my capital would be permanently behind this entire game. So I need to min-max city settling. I have already secured my golden age. And with my huge faith numbers, monumentality will not be a waste like in the last video. All we need now is to set up our assembly lines, which requires governors and religion. Magnus's provision means that we lose no population when training settlers, but settlers are still far too expensive to build 20 of, which is why for our golden age, monumentality helps alleviate that struggle just a bit by allowing us to buy settlers with faith, which, like my third city, I can settle for another +8 holy site, and thus more faith for more settlers. My numbers were so high that Molly had to pop out just to confirm the rumors with his own eyes, when I placed my 4th city with a +9 holy site. Sadly, even with all my faith, I still need to produce most of my settlers the good old-fashioned way, which is aided benefited greatly when I found my religion. Work ethic transfers all my holy site adjacencies into full-on production, and that number would soon double when I make a discovery. But the second belief is in no way overshadowed, as World Church holds the final key I need to make my strategy possible. With my capital obtaining over 10 production from holy sites, the Ancestral Hall and its 50% boost to settlers is even more powerful than usual, allowing me to churn out cities like Natal for +9 holy sites that also give +9 production. But that is only half of the final number, as theology unlocks the scripture policy card, doubling the holy site adjacencies, as my cities are now making at least 16 extra production from their holy sites, and are stronger than every other city in the game. With such massive production and faith numbers set up, and more cities coming in, everything has fallen perfectly into place, and I could now begin to scale my faith into other yields. But to get to Chorus, I first need to enter the medieval era, where I unfortunately do not get back-to-back golden ages. But Exodus of the Evangelists guarantees that we will get 2 in 3 eras, and after obtaining the first of 20 victory points for a Diplo game, I finally obtained a governor title and upgrade the Void Singers into Chorus, as my yields skyrocket overnight. Even still, the AI seems a lot stronger than normal in this game, meaning my victory was far from certain. I would need to continue increasing my faith numbers with temples and more holy sites, but at the very least, I was now in position to begin gunning for every victory type in the game simultaneously. And one of those victory types was already under danger of complete failure. Russia is beginning to convert my cities, and I don't have enough faith to do more than hold them back. I need to improve my cities to get strong enough to push back against their superpowered apostles. And the best policy card in the game for that is feudalism, as every builder can be put to work chopping and improving every tile in my empire, as my stronger cities were outputting more faith and every other yield. But feudalism isn't as powerful this game as it usually is, since I can't afford to chop down my rainforests, which pretty much have to just stay there until I research mercantilism and can build lumber mills on top of them. With the growth of my cities limited, I need an ace up my sleeve. And my strong culture numbers allow me to do just that by researching Reformed Church for the government Theocracy. Now, all my apostles gain an extra combat strength buff, and when combined with the debater promotion, I began smoking Russia's religious units. But Russia itself was vast, and so I would need a lot of apostles to convert it faster than they can reconvert. So I spent turns stockpiling faith in the process, while I waited for a few governor titles that were about to change everything. For now, I began to set up for other victory types by building wonders like the Taj Mahal to help out with tourism. This wonder spree gave me a golden age in the Renaissance that I used to go for monumentality again, where this time I mainly used my faith to purchase builders, who with mercantilism could finally unlock the full potential of the Amazon. And with my last few cities being settled, I had finally achieved my full build for this entire game. Just as I finished constructing Casa and finally obtained the governor titles I would need to begin my conversion spree. With these titles, I promoted Moksha up to patron saint, giving me 2 apostle promotions for each one. And with all my faith stockpiled, I began the long spree of spamming out as many of them as I could, who in turn began overwhelming the defenses of both Canada and Russia. But this religious victory was going to be costlier than normal, since every civ has a religion in this game, and I can't do my city trade stat in lieu of the other victory types I need to achieve. And so I had to raw dog Peter, who was holding his ground with his own sacred ground debater apostles. As my forces were suffering heavy attrition, I decided to abandon the Canada campaign to focus everything I had on Russia, with the plan of completely converting every one of their cities so that they don't blindside me at the end of the game. And just then I realized how fully difficult this game was going to be, since I had to convert every city for every civilization without my city trading strategy for this to work. In the end, my high faith numbers and powerful apostles won out as I pushed into Moscow and St. Petersburg, where I began to fight with Portuguese apostles, taking advantage of the weakened Russian state. Eventually, I reached a breaking point when I converted the holy city of St. Petersburg, leaving Russia dead in the water. And in no time at all, I had finally fully converted the Russian Empire. 4 more civs to go. But my conversion of Russia didn't go unnoticed by the others, who were about to put me in a world of pain with the religious emergency that just passed. I had to take the initiative, so I quickly moved on to Canada, who themselves were weak with only missionaries that were easily two-shot by my apostles. Zhao was going to be a different story, as he already had apostles in Magdeburg that my own forces could barely match up against. While this war on 2 fronts was raging, I caught a lucky break as I was the only civilization in a golden age, where I selected Heartbeat of Steam for more wonder production. With both Portugal and Canada not in their golden age, their units became a lot weaker, and for Canada especially, that was their death sentence, as their holy city was all too willing to convert to my religion, giving me the second of 5 civilizations. And after forcing Portugal back, I pursued them, which was about to blow up in my face, as their strong apostles flanked my unprepared units, and I was only barely able to escape, with a handful left intact. Portugal's mountains and strong faith output was going to be impossible to get through without some sort of plan. And when it rains, it pours. While I was too focused on the religious game, Guitarja was starting to run away with her culture. If I dillied, or God forbid, dallied, this culture victory would be impossible to achieve. I needed a change in government, and so I went democracy for both food and production, sure, but also for the New Deal policy card, giving me enough amenities to obtain a 20% increase to all yields. By keeping the Theocratic legacy policy card, I still had the combat strength of a theocracy, but the real coup d'etat happened when I was able to orchestrate a world intervention against Portugal for the unforgivable crimes of being fat as fuck. As now every civilization in the world would be in their territory, pillaging their holy sites and condemning their religious units. And with every civ busy fighting in the war, I could look to make up lost ground on the culture game, while also pulling Guitarja's numbers back down to earth. To store all these great works, I built the National History Museum in the capital, but that was the limit, at least until broadcast centers, and so I had to focus on building every wonder I could, no matter how ridiculous this Panama Canal looks. With my culture game saved, I could now move back onto religion with Portugal's units softened up, and with my faith yield so massive, Petro just came home with a low taper, I could once again begin to overwhelm their units with not just the number of apostles, but also the quality. The World Congress not only gives me another opportunity to obtain Diplo victory points, but also to pass the +10 combat strength for all my religious units, while also reducing the cost of military ones to incentivize the AI to focus more heavily on their military. With Portugal on the brink and my seasoned debaters rolling through, the only hope they have of stopping me is if they've got a Mormon sniper in the back. During this time, I was not only not neglecting my culture victory with more wonders, and and more great works further increasing my score, but also my diplomatic victory when I completed the Statue of Liberty for 4 Diplo points. Furthermore, my science numbers were respectable enough to give me spaceports, while my culture got me to environmentalism for a 25% boost to tourism. And as I was entering the endgame for those 3 victory types, I had finally fully converted my greatest foe, as there were now just 2 more civilizations left. But there is one more mechanic of this game that had the potential to ruin all my progress. St. Petersburg, like any holy city, already passively converted back to their own religion, and the others would do the same, giving me a limited amount of time to win this religious game. I moved fast by surprising Mali with a debate bro blitzkrieg that ended with the conversion of their holy city in the opening acts. And while they performed valiantly in their last stand in Jenne, they could not match the Brazilian apostles who had wiped out the rest of Mali's religious army. And with the Earth satellite revealing the entire map, I now knew exactly how many cities I had to convert, and it was looking a lot better than I thought. As my forces moved in to finish off the flailing Malians, I entered another golden age, once again gunning for Heartbeat of Steam I used to further increase my tourism. With the religious game almost won, I could also begin buying great people with faith that, thanks to Brazil's ability, allowed me to buy back some of the cost towards the next great person. With all this culture, I was breezing by the civic tree, which gave me enough envoys to employ a fairly large city-state alliance network, whose diplomatic favor I used to obtain 3 victory points, putting me just 1 session away from winning a Diplo victory. And even though I said I wasn't going to conquer until all the other victory types were at least almost guaranteed, I can't help it if they want to join my empire of their own free will, which will undoubtedly help kickstart the domination process. This mainly came down to the bonus loyalty pressure from following the same religion that every civilization in the game was now doing, aside from one. We were at the home stretch, and with Earth satellites, I easily blitzed Majapahit, the Indonesian holy city, and without that backbone, I was easily able to win a religious victory soon after, checking off the first and hardest box I had for this challenge. I could now fully move on to the culture and science victories. With my 900 tourism, I could finally plug in the Hall U policy card for rock band promotions and spam buy them, ensuring that everyone has album cover art, giving them increased survival odds when playing on Wonders. We don't need all of them to survive, as just 2 or 3 maxed out rock bands will be enough. But now it was finally time to end off the diplomatic victory portion of this challenge. After obtaining 1 point by winning the World's Fair, I needed to win all 4 Diplo victory proposals to check off the second of 5 boxes, and I was 1 short. This was rough, as I would have to wait another 30 turns before I could attempt to right this travesty, and who knows what could happen by then. With culture and Diplo progressing, all that was left before domination was science, where the exoplanet expedition pushed me to near victory, as all that was left was a waiting game. For now, I used my technological superiority to begin stockpiling nuclear weapons, since we're going to need them. While we are waiting on science and Diplo to come online, it's time to finish off the culture victory. After losing a large number to creative differences, I finally ended up with 4 at level 3 that can perform concerts without fear of death. And with an Atomic Era Golden Age and its Wish You Were Here dedication, my rock bands were putting out huge numbers. Major Queen hit a Legend of Rock for 10k, not to be outdone by Toxic Letters for both an 11 and 13k performance. This wouldn't do for Major Queen, who hit back with a 20k performance, while Toxic Letter could only match that with 15. But in their struggle for the hearts and minds of the nation, we were winning, as we check off the 2 hardest victory types in the game with 2 more on the brink of success. And while nothing could stop us from winning every single victory type in the game, they could stop us from being the first to all of them, as both Indonesia and Canada were now less than 30 turns away from victory. We had to move fast. We quickly set up for a domination win by implementing fascism for more combat strength. I realize I don't have enough uranium to spam out GDRs, and so scour the map for the closest sources, which we locate in both Canada and Russia. I need to prepare my armies quickly, and so buy a lot of bombers, and position both GDRs on Russia's border before finally biting the bullet. With Russia so far behind technologically, we eviscerate their front line. I can't afford to wait and immediately blitz the city of Kazan right as I prepare for the Canadian invasion with a missile silo right on their border. In the next turn, I realized that I'd won a science victory, and while that was nice, I still had 2 more to go, as both Canada and Indonesia were closing in. Thankfully, Russia cannot hope to stand against me, as Novgorod fell soon after, and the uranium I seek was getting ever closer. At that moment, Canada has seen the writing on the wall, and were worried that I was metastasizing too quickly, and so starts his chemotherapy before I was ready. With their GDR on a missile silo, I decide it's now or never, and crash out by nuking every one of Canada's cities in range. This bought me enough time to finish off Russia, which I proceeded to do by taking Smolensk, opening up the way to their capital of St. Petersburg, eliminating the last remnants of their air force in the process. The open skies meant that all we had to do was walk into Moscow, as Russian power was finally broken. With my attention now turned to Canada, I was interrupted by the last World Congress vote, where I win the 4th of my 5 victory types, leaving just domination to handle. The first civ on that block is Canada, whose nuclear winter meant that I could take 1 city per turn with my radiation immune GDR before moving on to Ottawa and securing my second capital just as I was cleaning up the south of Russia on my way to that sweet uranium. But it isn't just Russia that has uranium, as all I have to do to access Brantford's is by repairing the damaged encampment. With time running out, I make peace with Canada, as I already had their capital, to focus on the others just as I was able to force Russia to concede their uranium without a fight. I could finally focus on the remaining 3 civilizations. I can't afford to be bogged down through land combat, so I buy 2 carriers set to launch nuclear devices on Mali and Indonesia, while the Portuguese capital could be taken due to it being near our homeland. But at this moment, both Canada and Indonesia are about to win science victories of their own. I try building nukes faster, but it's just too slow, and losing Ottawa to rebellion seals it, as Georgia has won a science victory right before I was able to finish off the last of my own victory gauntlet. Despite that, my mama didn't raise no spitter, nuking all 3 remaining capitals on the same turn before winning our 5th and final victory on turn 298.